All right, for this tutorial, I got a little buggy, so I'm going to show you basically what you're doing. So we're duplicating this layer so we don't ever mess up the original. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. At this point, when I hit next, it just kind of like locks up. So what we're going to do is we're going to color portions of her hair. Now, this technique will work pretty well, but there's some details that would come in that would take some time to do, like the little hair strands and stuff, especially around here on her shirt. But if we want to colorize just portions of her hair, this technique works. I'll show you other techniques later. What we're going to do first is we're going to choose the brush tool, and we're going to go ahead and double click on whatever color happens to be here. And let's go ahead and give her some purple hair. So I'm just going to grab a purple. And then once you have that tool selected, we're going to reduce the size of this. I would say probably, I don't know, about 80, 89, 90, somewhere around there. And then we need to change the blending mode of the brush. This blending mode of the brush is different than the blending mode of the layer. So be careful with this one, because when we go to other tutorials, your brush might still say color when we really want it to say normal. So when you start the next tutorial, if things aren't working right, double check your brush and see if it's set to normal. But for this one, we're going to go ahead and do color. And what I can do now is on this layer, where I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, anywhere I paint with this brush, when I run it across white, it's not really doing a lot. But when I run it across her hair, it definitely shows up a lot more. It finds if there's more pixels that are not just pure black or pixels that are pure white or in that range, the color blend mode will work really well. Now, if you go too far over, that ends up happening. And with this particular technique that they're showing you, they're doing it on the original layer. So I can't just go to the eraser and erase easily, because if I go too far, when I go back and try to brush, see how this happened? And now it's not colorizing. So I'm not sure that I love this particular technique that they're doing on this with this brush, but that is a way to just paint a certain area if you want. Let me show you the way that I would prefer doing it. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer by pressing Command J. Now from here, I would like to actually be able to select her hair. So I'm going to come over here to my object select, and actually not object select, my bad, quick select. And I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, and I'm going to start just kind of dragging around on her hair to try to protect the areas of her shirt. Now, this isn't going to be perfect. I'm just going to show you a quick technique. This is more about understanding the idea than getting this thing perfect. So with this, getting and refining edge on the hair, basically getting it to where you get to the little strands, can be tricky at times. So I just pressed Command plus, and I'm using the space bar to move this around. I'm clicking with my mouse and moving. If you need help with that, let me know. With the quick select still selected, if I press the option, it will let me click anything that I want to get rid of. So I'm just using kind of the edge, the outside edge of the brush, to tighten this area up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this area, and we'll skip coloring that portion of her hair just for now, for sake of speed. But this middle part of her shirt is still selected. So I'm going to press Option again, and I'm just going to tap and kind of work my way down. I notice there's a couple little areas there that weren't selected. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush using my left bracket, my left square bracket. Option. I'm just going to tap there. Tap there, tap down here. So what I'm trying to do is get a tighter selection around her hair. Now, this area right inside of here, this is where things get tricky, because it's actually going to try to colorize the white in the background. So I'm just going to tap a couple times in here. If it happens to grab too much, you can let go of your Option key. The option is there to subtract from what you have selected. So along this edge, it's kind of grabbed portions of her eyebrow. So I'm going to option and click on that. I'm going to option and click around here, or else it's going to look like her skin got dyed. All right. So again, this is not going to be a perfect selection. We'll get into how to do nicer selections using these select and mask, but that's a little heavier than I want to deal with right now. What I'm going to do, instead of using the paintbrush to do it, I'm going to make a new adjustment layer based off of this selection. So if I come in here and I click on the adjustment and I go to hue and saturation, what I can do is now you'll notice the white area that's being exposed is just around the hair selection. So if I start to drag this around without even using the brush, I can move and adjust her hair color really, really quickly. So I can just drag, I can saturate it more, I can desaturate it depending on the look you're going for. I can darken up the color or I can wash it out. That one starts to get kind of really bad because it gets kind of nasty. So I'm going to drag that. I'm just going to kind of drag these around. Notice I'm on a yellow right now. It's because it's the hue and saturation is changing what the original color was. So like I can't just drag to purple and now all of a sudden it's purple. So that's why this little slider, you just kind of got to stare at the girl to see the color that you want to end up having. Now, the thing that I like with this is it's not permanently affecting the layer. And if I wanted to go in and clean up these edges, so I just did Command plus a couple times to zoom in. On this mask, I can actually use my paintbrush with a really low, like a lower opacity brush. And if I use the outside edge, not the center of the brush, but the outside edge, and I paint with black, and I just tap multiple times, it's actually getting rid of that little bit of an edge. Go ahead and bring the opacity up a little bit more. So you can kind of see I'm bringing back her original hair color just by dragging over it. And then if I really wanted to bring some of this back, instead of painting with black, I could paint with white. And see, that's bringing back some of her hair color. Now, this is the area where it starts to get a little trickier. I use the middle opacity brush, although my computer's locking up, so that I have to tap multiple times to bring it back. But see, this is where I start to run into the issue where it's coloring over her entire shirt. So this would be something we could do in a future tutorial to show you how to really get and clean up these edges without having to zoom way in, drop the brush really low, and kind of try to paint individual strands. I mean, that is an option, but that's a time consuming option. But hair is one of the trickier things to make selections on, but there are other techniques that I will show you to be able to do that. What I really wanted to show you here is this is a really fast, non-destructive way to make changes, and it lets you play around with stuff. And it doesn't have to be hair. It could have been her lipstick. It could have been her clothing. It could have been the background. A lot of different ways to modify it. So I would save that, and this is one I want you to show me.